This is Nikki G, and welcome to Better Commander. The Necron Dynasty, after 60 million Terran years, has finally awakened. The Necrons, or Necron tier, I don't know, I say Necrons, alright? Implacable, mechanical humanoids, awakened after 60 bazillion years in stasis on their tomb worlds. Awakened once again to destroy all the dudes. This deck was tough to upgrade. Right out of the box, evaluating the cards by themselves, there was very little I wanted to remove immediately. I mean, there's really good stuff here. It all works in harmony to create a deck that plays a little slow, but is very cohesive and has an inevitability to it. The card choices make for a very resilient play experience with lots of decision points. It's dynamic, it's fun to play. Matter of fact, I only put $15 into the budget upgrade. So if you have a higher budget, just grab a Reanimate and a Cabal Coffers and call it a day. Alright, let's take a look at the commander, but first, check on the emotional well-being of the like and subscribe buttons. Give them a pat on the shoulder, see if they're doing alright. You know, we're all in this together. Let's be kind to one another. And tap them while you're there. Alright, back to the Black Skull killing machines. Sarek, the Silent King, 1 black for a legendary artifact creature. It's a Necron, 3/4 with flying. My will be done. Whenever Sarek, the Silent King, attacks, mill 3 cards. You may put an artifact creature card or vehicle card from among the cards milled this way into your hand. This is fantastic card advantage. And if you want the card in the yard, remember this is a May ability. You can just leave it there. One of the initial frustrations with this deck, unupgraded, is whiffing with this, so I up the creature count accordingly. Most of the time this is drawing you a card, which is great. The other commander I considered was Canoptek the Stormlord. It's 2 black for a legendary artifact creature Necron. It's a 3/3. Whenever 1 or more artifact cards leave your graveyard, create 2 2/2 black Necron warrior artifact creature tokens. It also has Grand Strategist. At the beginning of combat on your turn, another target artifact creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains menace until end of turn. This is great in concert with Sarek, but is more of a build around at the helm of his own deck. The ability to make not 1 but 2 Necron warriors is pretty powerful. However, if you have mass reanimation or mass return to hand from the graveyard or even a mass exile from the graveyard effect, you only get 2. You want several small effects like this or repeatable effects. Cards like Scrap Trawler, Trading Post, and the like would be great. The Unearth on 8 of the artifact creatures in this deck will also work pretty well. This would lean into self-mill, bigger creatures to reanimate, and tribal payoffs for all the tokens. Ultimately, I decided to give Sarek a go, but Canoptek is a great build around. Then we got Anrakir the Traveler, 4 and a black for a legendary artifact creature Necron. It's a 4/4. He's Lord of the Pyrian Legions. Whenever Anrakir the Traveler attacks, you may cast an artifact spell from your hand or graveyard by paying life equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost. This is another great build around, but great incidental value in this deck as well. He has no evasion, he's 4/4, so I think at the helm of his own deck he needed a little help to be able to attack safely. 4/4 is respectable, and cards like Lash Writhe and Cranial Plating would get him big. Then we have Illuminor Xerath, 2 and a black for a legendary artifact creature Necron, 3/3. He has the Secrets of your Soul, brother. Tap, sacrifice another creature, add an amount of black mana equal to the sacrificed creature's mana value. Bro, he takes Secrets of your Soul, don't even worry about it. This may seem new, but Priest of Yawgmoth and Soul Devi Adonate do similar things. Priest of Forgotten Gods is an upgraded effect like this, though better and worse at the same time. With Sarek at the helm, this can be explosive if you need a burst of mana, plus some of those creatures want to be in the graveyard to begin with. Then we have Trazyn the Infinite, 4 black for a legendary artifact creature Necron. It's a 4/6 with Death Touch. It also has Prismatic Gallery. As long as Trazyn the Infinite is in the battlefield, it has all activated abilities of all artifact cards in your graveyard. I did a whole video on this guy. He's a spikier combo engine that just goes infinite with so many things. Such a cool deck to build, but I think it would get old after a while. Trazyn's a great build around by himself, but there are 17 cards with activated abilities in this deck that he can copy, so he can stick around here until I get him his own stack. Wow, so you have 5 total brand new legends in here to brew with. What a sweet bounty, what a cornucopia. But what are some of the new cards that pair nicely with our commander? In the 2-drop slot we have Chronomancer. A lot of creatures like this in this deck have flying, even though the art looks like a skeleton. I don't know how these dudes are flying. They got technology, brother. That's how you fly, dude. This is a sweet little sack outlet that can trade tokens for cards. Psychomancer is another flying creature that acts as a mini aristocrat if we get board wiped or our creatures get targeted. It's a little mediocre. Only 1 player gets pinged. Triarch Praetorian is like a mole drifter that only works from the graveyard, but for some inexplicable reason this guy also has flying. Canoptek Wraith is sort of a burnished heart that has to deal damage first, but he can't be blocked anyways. Burnished heart has kind of been power crept out of the format, but the amount of recursion in this deck makes this card pretty decent. Flayed One. These guys miss being human, they just want to wear your skin for a little while and then they'll give it back. It's 2 and a black for an artifact creature Necron. It's a 4/1 with lifelink. Has Flesh Flare. When it enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards. This is at least a little interesting. A 4/1 with lifelink that plays into our mill strategy. In playtesting, I was never sad to see this guy. Scorpack Lord is a nice little lord for 3 mana. He has Unearth for 3 mana and will give all your artifacts a little bump and some menace. Nice little lord, never sad to see this guy either. Out of the Tombs. At the beginning of your upkeep, put 2 Eon counters on Out of the Tombs, then mill cards equal to the number of Eon counters on it. If you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, instead return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. If you can't, you lose the game. This is kind of a dangerous game, but the average commander game only goes to turn 7 or 8. So even if you play it on turn 3, it only milled you for about 30 cards on turn 8, which is kind of where we want to be to hit our mass reanimation spells and our unearth abilities. By then we should have plenty of mana to cast all this stuff out of the yard anyway. If the game goes long enough to mill you out, I'd be really surprised. Alright, coming into the 4 drops, we have Canoptek Scarab Swarm. It's 4 generic mana artifact creature insect. It's a 1/1 with flying. Has Feeder Mandibles. When it enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. For each artifact or land exiled this way, create a 1/1 colorless insect artifact creature token with flying. This can be a great late game play to exile our own graveyard. Note that this says target player, not target opponent. So we're milling like crazy, and then this can recycle all those lands and the flying scarabs. In playtesting, I had 17 of these at one point. We also have the Canoptek Tomb Sentinel. It's 4 generic mana for an artifact creature insect. It's a 4/3 with vigilance. Has Exile Cannon. When it enters the battlefield from a graveyard, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent. Has Unearth of 7. Kinda lame that it only works when you unearth it, but c'est la vie, mon ami. Cryptek has 1 and a black tap. Choose another target artifact creature you control. When that creature dies this turn, return it to the battlefield tapped under your control. This can come in real handy. It's not too hard to hold up 2 mana. And then we have Crypto Thrall. This has Protector. Other artifact creatures you control have hexproof. This guy's sole purpose in life is to defend your crypto wallet from hackers. What a bro. The Locust Heavy Destroyer is like a bad fleshbag marauder, but it has flying and that absurd unearth cost. This has some utility, but definitely not a push card. Then we have Necron Overlord, 2 black for an artifact creature, Necron Noble. It's a 2/5. It has Relentless Mind, X, tap, X, untapped artifacts you control. Target opponent loses X life. This can be a win condition or a finisher if you can assemble a critical mass of tokens and creatures. It's fairly costed for the big butt stat block, but having to pay and tap is a bit of a steep cost for its ability. Their number is Legion is 4 black mana and X. Create X tap 2/2 black Necron Warrior artifact creature tokens. Then you gain life equal to the number of artifacts you control. Exile, their number is Legion. You may cast this from your graveyard. That last line of text is why I didn't cut this. It's a great late game play, and there are some big mana elements in this deck with a couple of the rocks tapping for 3. We also have Scepter of Eternal Glory, 4 for legendary artifact. Tap, add 1 mana of any color. Tap, add 3 mana of any 1 color. Activate only if you control 3 or more lands with the same name. This thing is great. Very satisfying play pattern. You play out a 2 mana rock, then on turn 3 play this and a 3-drop. Fun times. It's very powerful in a monocolored deck. Biotransference, 2 black for an enchantment. Creatures you control are artifacts in addition to their other types. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, you lose 1 life and create a 2/2 black Necron Warrior artifact creature token. The second ability is pretty relevant in this deck. All the creatures are artifacts anyway, except for the Catan shards. But that's a doozy. This can get out of hand real quick. It's a fantastic card. Alright, we're getting into the 5 drops. You guys excited yet? Canoptek Spider is 5 generic mana for an artifact creature spider. It's a 4/4. Also has flying. Has Fabricator Claw Array. Whenever another non-token artifact creature or vehicle enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. Again, flying spider, but this card, you want this on the battlefield. Fantastic in this deck. Probably has wider EDH use cases as well. Interacts great with artifact creature based decks and is colorless. We also have Necron Deathmark, 3 black, it's a 5/3 with flash. Synaptic Disintegrator. When it enters the battlefield, destroy up to 1 target creature and target player mills 3 cards. So we can pop an opponent's creature and mill ourselves because of the way this is worded. One of the most synergistic cards in this whole pile. You got your Royal Warden, artifact creature Necron. So this thing's got Phalanx Commander. When it enters the battlefield, create 2/2/2 black Necron warrior artifact creature tokens. It also has Unearth. This thing is getting us bodies, and if it ends up in the yard, then it's getting us more bodies. Love this thing. We also have Triox Stalker. It's 3 black for an artifact creature Necron. It's a 4/5 with targeting relay. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose an opponent. Creatures attacking the last chosen player have menace. This is a little political in that we can hammer through damage on someone about to combo off or someone who has a threatening board state. You know, those moments where everybody just says, you know, we got to take care of Jason over here. This guy's getting out of control. I like it. I like the flavor of targeting lasers as well. Hexmark Destroyer, 4 black artifact creature Necron. It's a 6/6. Has multi-threat eliminator. It can't be blocked except by 6 or more creatures. Has Unearth, 4 black. This is kind of a French vanilla beater. It can be a surprise 6 damage hammering through. It's nigh unblockable, but it's also pretty useless against a token swarm. Then we have the Tomb Blade. This guy is the artifact creature. It's a Necron with flying as well. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player loses life equal to the number of creatures they control unless they sacrifice a creature. Unearth, 6 black. Very situational. If they have 11 tokens, it's useless. If they have 1 Voltron commander, easy for them to take 1 damage. Really, it's another French vanilla beater. I'm going to keep it in there. Their name is Death. 3 black for a sorcery. Destroy all non-artifact creatures. Oh man, what a swingy card. I love it in this deck. Easy to include, one of the best cards in the deck. Technomancer, 5 black for an artifact creature Necron Wizard. It's a 5/1. When it enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards, then return any number of artifact creature cards with total mana value 6 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. This can be a fantastic swing, but I wish it had some kind of toughness or invasion. This thing looks like it has flying, but it doesn't have flying. I feel like this thing just comes down, reanimates something, and then kind of sits there. It's still a great card in this deck though. Necron Monolith, 7 generic mana for an artifact vehicle. It's a 7/7 with flying and indestructible. Has Eternity Gate. Whenever it attacks, mill 3 cards. For each creature card milled this way, create a 2/2 black Necron warrior artifact creature token. It has crew 4, so this is expensive, but it plays into our mill and token strategies, and it dodges most removal. It's a big beater. So the lore on this whole thing is very rich. You could go down the rabbit hole for hours. I don't know if it's C'tan or Satan or Catan, whatever. The Catan are beings of pure energy that have existed since the beginning of the universe. After they tricked the Necron tier into giving up their souls for bodies of black metal, Sarek bound them in the Tesseract labyrinths, their essence split into thousands of shards. So we have Shard of the Void Dragon. It's 4 black for a creature. Catan, it's a 7/7 with flying. Whenever it attacks, each opponent sacrifices a non-land permanent. Pretty dope. Whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield or is put into exile from the battlefield, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Shard of the Void Dragon. Dang, what a cool looking big fat flying beater with that awesome first ability. If this sticks around, everybody's in trouble. Then you have Shard of the Nightbringer. It's 5 black for a creature. Catan, it's an 8/8 with flying. It has Drain Life. Whenever it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, target opponent loses half their life rounded up. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. This is nasty. It has that ETB if you cast it. Even if you reanimate it, it's still an 8/8 flying beater. Okay, so I took out about 13 cards. The first thing I want to do is add more artifact creatures. Whiffing with Sarek feels so bad. We want to minimize that. We put in Solemn Simulacrum, Sandstone Oracle. These both provide solid value. Alright, so we're playing a long game here. We need removal to survive long enough for the implaceable Necrons to accumulate lethal value. So I popped in Duplicant, Noxious Gear Hulk, and Meteor Golem. We also want to be milling more, drawing into our reanimation spells. So Atrocious Experiment, Funeral Rites, Mill, and Draws. These are kind of cute little role player cards. Work great in this deck. This deck had some really good reanimator options, but we want 2 or more creatures out at one time, because we're milling a lot. So Victimize, Incarnation Technique can get us massive value and our great budget reanimator cards. I also put in Twilight's Call. This deck already contains Living Death, so Twilight's Call is a similar effect. Late game, after milling a few creatures, we can get 20 plus mana worth of creatures out for 6 mana. That's kind of the whole game plan with this whole thing anyway. Also leaning into mill, I added Altar of Dementia as a free instant sacrifice outlet we can activate in response to a board wipe or targeted removal to fill our graveyard even more. If those creatures are going to get destroyed, why not weaponize them into more mill? So once I got done tweaking it a little bit, the deck is very smooth. It plays a little slowly, accumulates value up to turn 7, then it activates one of our win conditions, either Mass Reanimation or Combat Beatdown. You can see the cards I removed in the history on Moxfield, Goldfish it, see what you think. It's a really good deck right out of the box, but once you get it optimized, it slaps, buddy. Thanks for watching. You guys be good to each other. Sneaky G from Better Commander, signing off.